did we do yesterday?
Artificial intelligence.
Got the computer block in, right? What concepts did we have to use to get the computer to block?
If else, if.
Yes, lots of if statements, right? We're going to start cleaning that code up tonight and making it a little bit easier to read that code and try and block and get a little bit more smarter about that. What were the surprises from yesterday? What did we do that you kind of didn't think of? What made a lot of sense? What were light bulb moments? Anything like that?
I don't know. The endless loop was
Oh,
fun.
hold on, wait. Your volume's really low in person. Okay, try that.
The endless loop was fun for me. Like,
Yeah, it's a good reminder, right? Of even though the while loop doesn't require a max number of runs, it's a good practice to get into that and make sure the computer doesn't run away on you.
right. And how
What else from yesterday? What's that, Wayne?
And how like, if you do have an endless loop, you can tell like, okay, it is in one.
Yep, knowing how to kill that, knowing how to get our code to close out in the browser and how to fix it.
Right.
What else from yesterday? We feeling good about Tic Tac Toe? Are we feeling like we understand it? Are we feeling like we're understanding JavaScript syntax? Or are we still feeling like, maybe this is too hard of a project? How are we feeling in general?
Not that it's too hard, but it's cumbersome.
Yep. So the good news is we are not going to add any new features tonight. Our Tic Tac Toe is pretty much completely feature complete, except for some styling. So the goals for tonight are to go in and refactor some of our code, identify ways that we can cut down on the number of lines. And then I am going to encourage everyone to spend some time to style that up and then go back to your portfolio site, update your portfolio site, get a GitHub repo set up for it, and get your Tic Tac Toe up on your portfolio site, because it is an accomplishment to be able to get Tic Tac Toe working, and it is showing off so many JavaScript concepts, right? We've done looping, we've done events, we've done if statements, we've done functions, we've done event handlers and understanding IDs and how the buttons work on those. There's just so much that we have covered there that you want to show that off, right? So that when an employer is looking at your code, it isn't just, oh, look, they made a little portfolio site. It's, hey, look, I can understand how to build an entire interactive game and check to see if they have won and make sure it's blocking and all of that stuff. So major accomplishments there. But tonight we're going to go in and we're going to clean up our code a little bit. We're going to talk through using pseudocode to figure out how we solve something before we dive into the actual code. And then the second half of the night, we are going to do a capstone check-in. So it's an opportunity to spend the second half of the night either getting our capstone project set up, if you haven't already done that. I'm hoping everyone has dived into that at some level, has a folder started, has some HTML started. But we're going to kind of use the second half of class for an open office hours for capstone. So if you do not do an update in class tonight, I'm going to keep track of everyone who went and just jot down some notes for myself. If you do not go in class tonight, that's okay. You do not have to go in front of everyone, but I will be reaching out to you next week to schedule a one-on-one at some point. So this is just an opportunity to check in on capstone, see how you're going. If you want to share with the whole class, I would encourage you to. I think that that's a great thing to do. But if you are feeling a little public intimidation, it is also fine to schedule a one-on-one with me next week and we can go through it from there. But either way, within the next week, you will have at least one checkpoint with me just to see how your capstone progress is going, what your next steps are, what you've got done, and anywhere that you're roadblocked or need a little bit more help with concepts. Any questions for tonight? Anything that we need to revisit from yesterday's code before we dive in?
I think I got a pretty good understanding. I just still worry that I'm not be able to do it on my own.
Yeah, so the biggest thing I can say to do there is go through the Free Code Camp projects, because Free Code Camp has a lot of great projects there. And it's about getting over that initial intimidation factor, right? Of like, okay, empty script.js, empty index.html, how do I start here? And the answer, excuse me, the answer to that for any project should never be in the code. Right? The answer to that is take a step back and start trying to do your project planning out. Start trying to think about, all right, how do we do this for Tic Tac Toe? Well, the user's got to be able to click on something. What are they clicking on? All right, let me get my UI done, right? Okay, now what happens when they click on that button? Okay, that shows up. Okay, now what happens? The computer needs to go, right? Breaking it down into that thought process should make it easier to accomplish any project. And I think that's the biggest thing that I see in junior developers. They rush into it and they get all of this code done, and then they realize they have to scrap most of that code because they didn't think through step by step of how the user's interacting with it and what should be done. So taking that approach of saying, hey, what should be happening? Let me make sure I can say that in English as a sentence first. Then let me break that down into kind of the pseudocode. And then from there, we are able to approach the project and make sure the whole thing gets done. And if you need any help with that, if you're working on something, even if it is in a class project and you're like, I'm on my capstone or I'm doing this Free Code Camp thing and I'm not really sure where my next steps are or how to get this started, that's a great use of a 15-minute one-on-one, right? Just go in and book with me. I'll work with you on planning all of that out. And hopefully it's enough to get you jump started on the project. Any other questions?
Are we gonna do like a Trello board? I think you got a Trello board like for a capstone.
Yeah, let me see if I still have that. Let me see if I can get to that easily. Remind me during break, Nicole. I'll pull that up, and then I can share my screen through it. I have to sign back into Trello.
Okay, no problem.
Any other questions? Okie doke. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm moving you guys over to my other monitor. I am popping open VS Code. I am going to go to my code, my week 9, my day 3, and I'm going to duplicate it. And I'm going to rename it as D4. And then I'm going to drag that into VS Code. And I'm going to kick off a live share for you guys and dump that in live stream and in the Zoom chat.
What week and day is it? Mine are all on it.
We're on week 9, day 4. Okay, pop open index.html and script.js. I'm going to go live and I'm going to add that to the live server in case you guys want to play around with my code, you can. And we should be good to go. Okay, so there are 2 things that I noticed right off the bat that I want to clean up. One is down here. We've got code copied and pasted, right? We've got check game status, and then we've got a set timeout, alert who's won, clear the board, update HTML. And then we do all of that again. We check game status, we check to see if there's a winner, we set timeout, we update HTML. So the first step in cleaning up our code here is figuring out what is repeated. And what is repeated here is the, if there's a game winner, set the timeout, alert who's won, clear the board, and update HTML. So we want to be careful with our function name there because our function names are always supposed to be descriptive. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to say const, and what I'm doing is alert game winner and clear board. So that's what I'm going to call it. I'm going to say alert winner and clear board. Now that's a really long function name, but there's nothing wrong with that in my opinion because it's descriptive. We know what's supposed to be going on in that function. So I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to take my entire set timeout and move it into my function up here between the curly braces saying alert winner and clear board. So I'm going to take this, copy it, and come down here and just paste it in. And then we can do all of that over again. If there's a game winner, we can take all of this out and say, hey, all of that is doing alert winner and clear board. So we just cut down on some of our lines of code. All we did is we said, hey, what code is reused? What did we copy and paste? It was the whole set timeout, right? It was the alert, the clear the board, and the update HTML. So we took all of that code, put it in alert winner and clear board, and then we came down in both places that code was used that function, and then we executed it by adding our 2 parentheses, and then we also used it down here to check again. So let's make sure that's still working and didn't break. I'm going to try and win here. Oh, something must have broken because I'm not getting an alert and the board is not clearing. So let's figure out what's going on there. I've got game winner is not defined in my console, right? So it was easy to think, all right, everything's fine, but it wasn't doing something, right? I knew something was wrong. So it's always a good idea whenever we're working on our JavaScript in our browser to open up the console, because it may be telling us there's a problem without us knowing that it's trying to tell us it's a problem. So it says game winner on 302 is not defined. Well, I go up to 302 and it's game winner here. But I don't have access to game winner because we're in another function here. So if we go down and look at game winner is here and here, but we need to pass it into the function. What do we use to pass variables into functions? Parameter. So I'm going to add in game winner both here and here. And then I need to go up and modify my function so that when it looks for game winner, it knows, hey, pull that out of the parameter or the arguments. So now when I try and win, X is 1 and everything's working. So again, what we did is because we've got game winner going on here and we want to pass that into the new function, we need to pass it here as an argument. And then all the way up here, we need to add it as a parameter so that when we try and access it in here, we don't have any problems. You good there?
I will be eventually.
Okay, so we're going to come back up here and we've got a whole heck of a lot of if statements here. Check game status. We are doing a whole bunch of things. What can we say this code is doing kind of line by line? Tell me what this code is doing using English.
If this happens, and if this doesn't happen, do this instead.
So take it a step higher than that. What is the if that we keep on checking?
If the X is at 0, 0.
Yep, take it a step higher level than that. Read the comment.
If check the first row.
Check the first row. Okay, well, we know how to do that using our if statement, right? We say check 0, 0, check 0, 1, and check 0, 2. But wouldn't it be nice if we could just write a for loop that would go over each one of those spots and check to see if we've won? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come right up here and I'm going to do a new one called check game status. And I'm going to call it refactored. And the reason I'm doing this, normally we would just go in and write over this code and have it do what we want. But I'm going to keep this function in here as a separate name so that we can reference back to the old one. So I'm going to find any place that we call check game status. And I'm going to replace that with check game status refactored. Then I'm going to go into my function, and the first thing we said is, hey, the if statements that we're checking here are to see if the first row has all X's, or the second row has all X's, or the third row has all X's. And if they do, X must have won, right? So we're gonna say check all rows to see if they are all of one letter. So I'm going to do a for loop, and I'm going to say for const row of board. And then I'm going to say for const col of row. And because these are nested, this is going to run every time this runs, right? And so important to remember here that because we've got a multi-dimensional array, the for row of board is going to give me each one of these arrays, but then the for col of row is going to take the row array and break it down into each individual letter. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, go through each column, and if the column
I'm like, I can't think anymore.
I just had the same moment. Give me a second to think through this. So we are going to say we need to compare whatever I just thought of another way to do it. Go through each row, and if the row is that's not going to work either. Okay, try that. Go back to what we had for const col of row. You guys may not want to follow along, so we get it working, and then we can catch up from there. Okay. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to check to make sure that all three items in the row are the same letter. So we're going to assume that up here, let every all letters, all cols equal to false, equal to true. We're going to assume that every column is the same letter. And we're going to go through and we're going to say,
could we get the first element in the row outside of the column loop, then compare to that in the column loop?
sure, let's try that. We're going to say let first letter equal the row 0. And then as we go through it, if the column does not, if the column equals the first letter, if it doesn't equal it, then this is not they're not all the same. So we can skip out, break. Let me just give me a couple minutes to play around with this. Yep, that's fine. See what this does. So we're going to go X. loop over all the rows, take the first letter from that, then check to see if the letter on the column that we're in is equal to the first letter. If it is, then we're going to go back up and get the second column and see if it's equal. If it is, go on to the third one. And if all of that is true, then we have the winner. So we're going to say all the way up here, let winner equal no one. And from that winner, we're going to go and we're going to say, hey, if the column equals the first letter, then set our new letter to check. To the one that we're currently on. Because at first we're comparing the first one to the first one. Those are obviously going to be the same. Then we go through to the second one and we try and compare the second one to the first one. If that is equal, then we set it in and check the second one to the third one. And if it's ever not true, then break out of this loop and try and check the next row. And then if we make it through all the way and letter check is then return that out as the winner. Return. So to make this a little bit easier, I'm going to go down to the bottom and say, instead of computer block or random turn, I'm just going to make the computer take a random turn. X is 1. X is 1. Okay, I think we're good now. Okay. Take a step back and talk through this. So first thing I did, I came down here and I don't want my computer to run check game status the original way that we had it, right? Those were all of the if statements. So what we did is we created a new function called check game status refactor, because this refactoring is the process of going through our code and trying to find a more efficient way to write it. So we come up to this function, and the function that I wrote, thank you, Doug, for the inspiration there, is we said, hey, go through the row, go through every row on the board. When we start going through it, take whatever the first letter is out. So we're going to look at the first letter, and if it's an X, we're gonna check that X against every other thing in the row. So we go through and we get each column out, and we say, hey, take the column and compare it to the letter to check. So if we are on, we're comparing 0, 0 to 0, 1. 0, 0 to 0, 1 is what we're comparing here. So we're saying, hey, if they are the same thing, then we need to check 0, 1 to 0, 2. If they are not the same thing, then this row is not going to be a winner, right? If the X is next to a blank or is next to a an O, there's no way that row will be the winner. So what we do is we say, hey, if the first column is equal to the second column, go to the second column and compare that to the third column. if the second column and the third column compare to each other, then all three of them must have been all an X or all an O, so they must have won. But if at any point the column that we're on does not equal the letter that we're checking it against, then come through here, set letter to check to null, because now we don't have a winner, and break out of the loop. We don't need to keep running the loop. We're able to move on to the next one. Did free code camp cover break? No.
Switch.
So what the break does is it says, hey, you don't need to run this loop anymore. We're done running the loop. You can break out of the loop. You don't have to keep going. So what we do down here is we say, hey, if there is a letter to check, then return that out. So let's do this. We're going to say, let's try and make this a little bit visual. So I'm going to do my X, and my X. So let's run through this as if the computer runs through it, and let's try and annotate it out. Okay. First time this row runs, we are going to get okay. First time the row runs, it goes over the board. Draw. It takes. Is it not going to let me draw? There we go. It gets the row. The row is going to be this row in here. Okay. Then we come in there and it says letter to check row 0. Row 0 is going to be our X in here. So that gets stored in our letter to check here. Now we go through and it says get each column of row. Well, the first time this runs, column is going to be our first column right in here. So column is going to be X. Now it says check the column, which is X, against our letter to check, which we already said is the X here. So, okay, we're good. X equals X. Now we go back through. Now it says this if statement is going to run. So take whatever's in the column and make that our new letter to check. Now this else is not going to run because X does equal X. So now we come down and we hit this curly brace, which means we're done with the first time this loop runs. We come back up to right here. So now we clear everything out. Letter to check, though, is equal to X still. So we come back into this loop, and now our column is coming from right here. So our letter to check, though, is coming from the last time the loop ran. So we're saying now go to the column, which is this one up here, and take letter to check in. But letter to check, because it's coming from the last time this loop ran, is coming from this one right here. Yep.
That if it's clicked, like once it started.
This check game status refactored runs anytime after the player moves or the computer moves. So now it says, okay, what we are effectively doing here is col is the current column we're on. Letter to check is holding on to the last column value that we just went through. So we're trying to compare this right here to this right here. Okay, well, X does equal X. So now we don't run this else statement. We come down to this curly brace and we've got to run this loop one more time. So what we do is we go back up. Now our letter to check is equal to the the second column we just went through, right? Index 1. So what we do that last time, col is now going to be this X right here. So that X comes in and we check column, which is our X here, to our letter to check, which was the last column we were just on, which is going to be this one. Now it says, all right, go ahead and set letter to check into whatever the column value is that's coming from up here. We don't run this else statement because X equals X. We come down and we hit this last curly brace. And that last curly brace says we are now done with this entire if statement because we have gone through all 3 columns. So because we have gone through all 3 columns, check to see if there is a letter to check still. If there is still a letter to check in here, that means that that player has won the game. Yes,
Are we gonna have to do that like multiple times for each row?
we're gonna get to that in a second. So I'm gonna clear this out and I'm gonna go through this again if there isn't a winner. Right? Because we've got this if statement here, and we need to check not only to see if someone has won, but we also need to move on. Yeah.
I know you already explained this, but how does the computer know which row to check?
Because we're looping over all the columns and all the rows.
Okay.
And as soon as we find a row that has a winner in it, this return acts like not only a break for the loop, but it also acts as a break for the whole function. So it won't run any other code. It will break out of the loop. It will break out of the function and will say, we found someone who won. But we only do that if there is still that letter in it. So let's look at it this way. We're going to say X and X. So we're going to leave it like this. Now the loop runs and it goes, all right, go through the first row. First row is going to be right in here. Letter to check, we're going to assume the letter that we start with is always the first item in the row. Now it goes through and it gets the first column and it basically compares the first column to the first column from right here. And because X is equal to X. The if statement is always going to be true the first time the column loop runs because it's comparing it to itself. That's okay. Now it comes in and letter to check here is now equal to this X. And it says, now go get the second column. The second column is an empty string. The empty string, which is col here, does not equal the letter to check, which was the X up here. So this if statement is not true. It does not run this code, and it comes down to the else. And it says that letter that we're checking is null. We didn't find a game winner. This whole row is not filled with X's. So we break out of the loop, which is going to stop this whole thing from running because we don't care what's in the third one. All 3 of them need to have the X in it. So we come down here and we say, hey, is there a letter to check? No, there's not a letter to check. We cleared out letter to check, which means there is no game winner. And because of that, we don't run this return. We go to this end of the for loop and we say, now we're ready to move up to the next row to go check every column in that row to continue out the logic.
So if you had an X checked in the second row, but nothing checked in the first row, the code would run for the first row. It would show that it's not meeting that criteria. It would just move down to the next row.
Correct. And that's because we didn't hit this return in here. So it's like, all right, I'm done with this row. Now I hit this curly brace, but I'm not done getting every row out of the board. So now we run on to the second one.
Question. So say for instance, like the first row, the second column, or the second column in the first row, would it save like that one and go on to the next row to be like, oh, well, if you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it would, because we only hit this, maybe letter to check isn't the right word. Let's refactor this to say winner. So what we do is we're optimistic. We assume that every row that we start on, the winner is going to be whatever value is in the first column. And the goal here is to say, hey, did we have a winner in all three columns? Because if we've got the same letter in all three columns, that player must have won. But if at any point we hit something that is not the same in all three of those spots, that means we no longer have a winner, clear out the winner and break out of the loop, move on to the next thing, right? Because what we're saying is if this one doesn't match this one, it doesn't matter what this one is. So, yeah,
So we're only checking for,
rows, we're not checking columns,
Not yet, anyways, right?
not yet. So let's do one more explanation through this, and then we'll do a poll and see if people can catch up to it. So we renamed our check to winner. So what we do is we say, go to the board and get every row out of the board. We're going to go through all three rows here. Then we say, assume whatever the first column has in it is the winner for that row. So if it's an X, assume that X has won the game. Now go through each column in that row. And if the column that we're on, 0, 1, or 2, matches the winner, matches the first time this loop runs, it's going to compare it to the first item in the column. And if it matches, then we take whatever the column is and store it into winner. So the next time this loop runs, it will go through and it will say, all right, now we are comparing column 1 to column 0. Then we're comparing column 1 to column 2. And if at any point all of the columns do not line up with each other, then we must not have a winner. Stop checking this column and move on to the next row. But if all three of the columns are the same values, then we have found a winner. Break out of everything by returning out the winner. And this is only, again, to Larry's question, only checking the rows here. Yes.
If say the first row has no marks in it,
Yep.
would those count as the same, or does an empty space equal false?
An empty space will equal false. But we only check down here to see if there's a winner.
Right, but when it's going through the row, like if it says row 0 is an empty space, then it goes through and says, or row column 0 is an empty space, column 1 is an empty space, column 2 is an empty space.
So because it's empty, it is a false value.
Okay.
So it comes down here and it says, oh, the winner is no one. The winner is an empty string, so we're not going to hit that return. We're going to keep checking.
Got it. Thank you.
So let's kick off a poll here. And if anyone is feeling particularly bullish and wants to try and explain this, you're welcome to give it a stab, because maybe your explanation may make it click for another student. But well, you know what? While you guys are working on that, I'm going to put in comments. So
Hey, Max, can I ask a question?
yep.
All right. What will cause my code to completely disappear?
Like disappear out of VS Code, or disappear like the files are gone, or
Like disappear out of VS Code from like a certain point. So remember yesterday, before we ended class, I was caught up to speed. I saved it. I was good. We were up to date. I duplicated my file to open up day 4 to get started, and my code is literally on line 112. And I just been sitting here following along because I have to start from scratch, basically. There's like no explanation because I don't know what happened.
copy the right folder.
Yeah, that's the only thing I could think of is like you accidentally copied day 1 instead of day 2, or day 2 instead of day 3.
No, because I clicked back into day 3 and day 3 is like still stuck at 112 too. And there would have been no way because I had to save it in order for it to do what it did yesterday, or it wouldn't act right, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I do not have an explanation for you there.
Okay, well, just so you know, I'm going to play catch up so
Okay.
I can get back to that point and then hopefully get to wherever you guys are at. Thank you. I just wanted to see if it was something I could have done. I don't know. It's been a day, so thank you.
The code is like it. But Jackson was putting me onto it. It's in Slack somewhere.
What?
The theme that you put me onto.
Oh, yeah.
The black ball.
I think it's just called Midnight Sin.
Oh, okay.
Synth, SYNTH.
All right, we've got 7 votes in. I am inspired that I have 5 people who are not completely lost on this.
I'm lost, but I'm not lost.
So I added in some comments here. Go ahead and read through them and see if that helps something click. Good.
Thank you, Zach.
Sure.
Is the game supposed to not have a winner?
No, it should be.
Well, it's not gonna have winners for diagonals or columns, right?
Correct. We're only checking rows right now.
Okay, okay,
So if you've got 3 across in any of the rows, it should let you win. And it is what we did is down in our on click or button clicked event, I disabled computer block or random turn and switched it back to using random turn, which made the computer a little easier to win against. And that was just for testing reasons.
so when I tried to play, I'm just saying that when I'm playing, it's not like cutting off after there's 3 in a row. But
Okay,
you're saying that as long as if it's diagonal, then we're going to go back in and do something else to that?
Only rows are the only way you should be able to win right now.
Okay,
So if you have 3 across and don't get X as 1, then there's something wrong with your code.
okay.
All right, we got 8 votes in. I'm gonna make 9 to oh, we just got a 9th vote in. We'll shoot for 10.
I have a question.
Yep.
So you updated, because like my code is a little different, but you updated the constant number between.
This is a whole new function.
So you took that out and then you put that.
We didn't take anything out. All we did is we created a new function in here called check game status refactored. And then down in our on click, instead of calling check game status in both of these places, instead we just check game status refactored.
And that is under button clicked and
There should be two of them.
under button clicked, and it's before or and after the button. Oh, wait a minute a second. Let me look at mine before. Okay. I think I see it. Hold on.
Okay.
Question, you probably went over this, but I have the let game member check game status at the bottom twice. It looks like you don't have it twice. Or
That's what I have.
So you did take something out, or you replaced that function with the check game status function.
I got a computer random return.
Yes.
Oh, you added game. Wait, then now I have three. I don't know. I don't know. Oh,
Max, I'm getting a winner not defined. How you, what?
have this stuff where is it? Have this stuff at the bottom? Like all this?
Yeah, it moved it
Oh,
up into alert.
So this alert winner and clear board is a new function. We refactored this code because we had all of our set timeout stuff twice. We had it in here once and we had it all in here. So what I did is I took that entire set timeout and put it into a new function for alert winner and clear board. Then I took whatever this code was that we had duplicated twice, and I put it into that function and then replaced the two places that code was repeated with alert winner and clear board. Sanjay, did that help? I assume you-
Sort of. I gotta check something first.
Okay. Wait, do you want to share your screen?
Yeah.
Okay, your error was winner of undefined.
Yeah.
Okay, so go to 192. Okay. Where did we define winner? You really should not be capitalizing variables though. JavaScript is all about camel casing. So camel casing always starts with a lowercase and then any word subsequent after winner would have a capital letter. So save and see if that works.
Oh. Case sensitive. Okay. All right. I'm done. Thank you. I was checking. I was checking everything.
Okay, any other questions before we move on to our columns?
Like winner, if call equals winner, winner equals call. Okay.
Do the comments here help? Okay.
going from the comments is the number one thing that you should have in your code. Like if I get lost, I should just comment.
Yep. And I know a lot of students in the first and second cohort, the ones who understood it the most were the ones who went back after class, even though all their code was running, and put in their own comments, right? Because that was the true test of understanding of, hey, if I survived class, was I able to go back in and say, I'm going to read this code from top to bottom and be able to tell you what it was doing? Because if you can go in and tell what each line is doing and write it out in a comment, chances are you actually understand what this JavaScript is doing. So it's worthwhile to do that. If you voted in class and it's all working, take that time to throw in your comments of, hey, let me not just write out what Max did, let me understand what this line is doing and jot that note down. Okay, so we're going to keep going here. And I am going to say, we now need to check all of our columns. And if our columns all have the same value, then that player must have won. But we run into a problem here because we can't get access to our columns until we've broken apart our row. But we've already checked every row. Now we want to check every column going down to see if there is a winner. So what we're going to do is we're going to do another for loop. And we're going to say for, and we're going to go back to an old school loop. We're going to say let col index equal 0. While the col index is less than 3, because there are 3 columns, col index plus plus. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to console log out my col index. I come over here, I click once, and I get 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. Now, why do I get it twice?
That call index, because you got call index of 0 and then 0 is greater than 3 plus 2, like one more, so that's what 4.
We can't see your screen, Max.
Nope, thank you for the reminder.
So what happened? Oh, isn't it a loop? It's a loop, right?
Christy, if it makes you feel any better, I can't see my own screen. Okay, here we go. So what happened here is 0, 1, 2 printed out. Well, we know 0, 1, 2 printed out because we console log col index, right? So the first one is where our iterator starts. It starts at 0. So it goes through into this loop and it says 0 is less than 3. So console log out 0. Now it comes up to the incrementer part and it says col index plus plus. Okay, well now col index is 1. So it goes in and it says 1 is less than 3. So go ahead and console log it out. Okay, now the loop is done running. It comes back up to col index. Col index is now 2. 2 is less than 3. Go ahead and log out 2. Now go back up, add 1 to it. Is 3 less than 3? No, it is not. So it's done running. That explains why we're getting 0, 1, and 2. Why are we getting 0, 1, and 2 another time?
Wasn't that like in the beginning where we did something where like
Let me see.
math out? If it's loop, I'm gonna tell you.
What was the question?
Because there's two characters on the board. I don't know.
There are 2 what?
Characters on the board. The X and the O. No.
Nope.
Would it be because it runs it for each column?
Nope.
But it doesn't run it for the third column because it's less than 3?
Math out.
So, are you asking why the const keeps showing 0, 1, 2 and not 3?
No, I'm asking why do we have 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2 printed out? We know why 0, 1, and 2 is printing out, but why is it printing out a second time?
Not inside the row loop.
Nope, the row loop ends here.
But you don't have that little thing on it. The semicolon? That's over here.
Nope,
How many times does it print out?
twice.
Oh, once for the player, once for the computer.
Oh.
Bingo. We got to back our way out of this. Check game status refactored. If we go down to our on click, we not only check the game status refactored after the player has won, we also check it again after the computer has made their turn and check it for that. So whenever you've got code printing out multiple times, you want to check, because sometimes you put something in a for loop you didn't actually mean to put in a for loop. Sometimes a function is running more than you think it should. So being able to back your way out of that and figuring out why it's happening twice, super important skill to be able to do. So anyway, now let's get back to that code. So we're going over and we're checking all the columns. Now we need to check each row going down to make sure that they're all the same letter. So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to say for let row index equal 0, while the row index is less than 3, row index plus plus. Now, oftentimes you will see someone say for let I equal 0 while I is less than 3, I plus plus. And then they go in and they do another for loop and they go, well, I can't use I again, I'm going to use J. And then after J, they just keep on going down the alphabet, right? I cannot stand it when a for loop has an iterator called I. What are you looping over? What is that iterator supposed to represent? Call your variable that. Because now in our code, when we're using row index and column index, it's going to be much easier to know which one we're on. So what we're going to do is we're going to assume that the winner is going to equal whatever it's going to equal whatever the first row is on the column we're checking. Because again, we want to start here. We want to start at this X. Then we want to go down and we want to check this, whatever spot is here against whatever is in here. Then we're going to move down and check whatever is here against whatever is here. And if we've made it down to the bottom where there are no more rows to check and they are all the same, then we must have a winner. So we're going to go into our for loop here and we're going to say if the board of the row index that we're on in the loop, which is coming from here, and the col index that we're on, which is coming from up here, is equal to our winner, then we can just reuse our logic up here. Our winner is now going to equal whatever value we are currently on in the board. Otherwise, they must not all be the same. So we're going to say there is no winner in this column. Break out of the loop. And then once we are done checking every row in this column, which is this curly brace here that's matching the loop, we're going to check again to see if there is a winner. And if there is, return out the winner.
Got an L next to break instead of the semicolon there. Does everybody know what null means?
Undefined, right?
It's similar to undefined. It's just saying that it doesn't have a value.
No value. No value.
Yep.
What is the difference?
When you define a variable, so you say let my var, and you do a semicolon, that is technically undefined. So that my var has a value of undefined because you never defined a value for that variable. However, it's very rare to use undefined. When you are trying to set something as empty, you use null and not undefined. So they're similar concepts. It's just one is saying undefined is saying it was never set. Null is saying that it may have been set, but there's no value inside of it.
Can you set something to undefined?
You can, but it's not encouraged. And both null, undefined, 0, and an empty string in addition to false are all falsy values.
And that's where you'd use double equals instead of triple?
Correct.
That's what I was gonna say, when they won't stand up to a triple equals, right? The falsy values against false.
Correct.
Okay.
Unless the value is false itself, and then it would.
Right.
Okay, so let's see if it works. I shouldn't have you guys code it if we haven't tested it. Okay, I got blocked there. I got blocked there. Max is 1. Genius, Max. Okay, go there. Go there. Go here. I got blocked. Go here.
But it didn't say can.
So you're checking for the columns now.
I'm checking for the columns. So now I get X is 1 because I won on the column. And now I need to check another column. Well, diagonally, we haven't written yet.
Oh,
Okay, so my X is 1. So does someone want to take a stab here of what each line is doing?
For each column.
Yep. For each column,
Increment,
up to 3 columns,
increment by 1.
increment the col index by 1.
Winner is assigned the value of row 0 in the column index.
That's where it gets tricky, because you're not looking at the index in the row
Alright.
bar, but you're thinking of it as the column.
You're thinking of this 0 as the top of the column.
Right.
Okay. And then the row index, so we're keeping track of rows around now.
Just a note here, whenever you've got a line that's this long, it's better to take the whole comment and instead of putting it on that line itself, put it on the line right above it. So it's a little bit easier to read. Okay, now what's this for loop looping over?
Going through each individual row. And then after 3 rows, and increment on that. We're checking to see if the current row and column are equal to whatever value the winner was. So yeah, the first thing we sign up there. If that is the case, then we're giving winner that value of the current cell. If it doesn't, then we want to say winner is null, and we'll break out of that particular inside for loop. And since winner is null, it's not going to return, so it's going to go back up through the loop again. If winner is null. But it's okay.
What I'm hearing is I shouldn't start the poll again.
It's just one of the things I had to watch it later. I'm not lost as, lost with what's going on, lost with as far as having it. If I missed anything, type it, yeah.
Okay, so
Oh, I followed your explanation though. It seemed like you knew what was going on.
that's the most important thing. That's what I was just about to say. So it is, believe it or not, remember how much we all hated those if statements yesterday? And we were like, man, there are a gazillion of these and it's so easy to make a mistake. This is one of those things where, yes, it's less lines of code, but it's also harder to figure out how to write it. It's simple for the computer to go in and check it. And it is less lines of code, but at the same time, it's also much harder to write it.
Right.
And
That's what I was
harder to
gonna say.
read.
I wouldn't be confident if I had to go and do this particularly myself right now.
And so the important thing here is that not only do we have comments left in here, because this is some code that I would come back to and be like, it's gonna take me a minute to figure it out. So sometimes it's beneficial to even do like a block comment and say, check all the rows column by column to see if there is a winner. And then we go down and we explain through all that code. Same for down here. Check each column row by row to see if there is a winner.
Can you like click on yours because it's highlighted on the VS Code?
Click where?
Just click. Oh, I don't know. Over a copy.
All right. You ready for your head to really hurt?
We could have did this in one line.
No, but we're gonna do our columns in one line, one for loop instead of two.
All right, I'm just gonna fall back and enjoy the ride.
So we're gonna say for. See, as your guys' energy goes down, my brain starts kicking back on. Okay, so we're gonna say for let diagonal index equal 0. While our diagonal index is less than 3, diagonal index plus plus. And then we say let diagonal winner, and we're going to assume that it starts at our board 0, 0. And if the board diagonal index, and this is where your brain's going to hurt, diagonal index is equal to the diagonal winner, then set our diagonal winner to the current index that we're on.
Same as that, but as row and column.
Because when we loop through this, what we need to check is 0, 0, 1, 1, and 2, 2.
All right, after you do this, can we kind of do go in reverse because
Yep. Yep, we're gonna explain it. We'll go from the top down on this. So we're gonna say else set diagonal, or I should just call all of this winner.
Ooh. Wow. Where's the green coming from?
Winner is null and break out of the loop. And then if there is a winner, then return winner. And this is only going to work for our left diagonal. So if I come in here and I try and get my diagonal, X is 1. And then last one that I'm going to do, I'm going to take all of this and I'm going to say, hey, my winner, we're now going to start at 0, or we're going to start at 2, 2, start at the bottom right, and then start our index at 2, work in reverse, and stop when our index is greater than or equal to 0.
Practice cooking,
Seriously?
There's a lot, like I said, a lot of copy and paste.
So it's popping up, but like still, like I have to bring my whole.
Oh, that did not work. 2, winner. 1, 0, 0. One, 0, 0. That should be done running. Oh no, I need to start it at. It's starting at 0, 0. I need to start it at.
Oh, right, it's the same diagonal in 2 directions.
Yeah, and I'm trying to check this diagonal. So I need to start it at 0, 2. But then when the loop first runs, it checks 2, 2, and that's not right. It needs to check. I've got a homework problem for you guys. Need right to left diagonal.
So go backwards.
Go backwards. So go here, here, here. You can get a 3 on this here. I'll give you 2 different ways of getting a 3 on this assignment. You can either check that backwards diagonal, or you can do all of the styling, which is what I'm going to recommend, so that you can put it on your portfolio.
Here we go.
Does the solution have to be a loop?
No,
Just use if statements?
we could use the if statements.
I'm glad I didn't get over to that part.
Or you could get creative and try and make it work with a loop.
So.
Okay, so let's do, does someone other than Larry or Doug want to try and read through this code and explain how our diagonal checker is working?
1, 1, 2, 0. 0, 2. 1, 1, 2, 0. So one decrements and the other one increments.
Mm-hmm.
Go down by something.
Go down by 1, the opposite of increment.
Work on it together.
Amen. You did a
Does anyone want to take a stab at explaining how our diagonal one is working?
I'll do the styling. Do the other part.
I could try.
Okay.
All right. So let winner equals board. The first row, the first column.
Yep. So assume winner is letter in the top left column.
And then the for loop is gonna run to say let diagonal index equals 0. So that would be index, diagonal index.
Oh, I got it.
For the index is going diagonally, it should equal to the character that we're looking for. And it should be less than 3.
Yep.
So not Then the if statement is comparing all the diagonal indexes to make sure that they have all the characters to check to make sure it equals the winner. Else it will come back as no. And then the code will break if the winner is but if not, then it's gonna run winner again from the top. Okay.
Do we want to try together the reverse diagonal instead of just leaving it for homework?
Working on that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting close.
I got the concept, I just, how to implement it is the problem.
All right, so I love that you're on paper, Larry, because that's the way that you're gonna figure it out quicker than just trying to type it. So Larry had this figured out best of, all right, one needs to go up while the other one is gonna go down. So where do we need to start checking? We need to start checking at 0, 1, 2. So we're gonna say for let row index equal 0, because we're starting at 0, while row index is less than 3, row index plus plus. But then where are we starting our column? We're starting our column at 2. So we're gonna say for let col index equal 2, while col index is greater than or equal to 0, we don't want to go into negatives, col index minus minus. Then we assume our winner is going to be at 0, 2.
Yeah, put board in front of that though.
I sure do. If the, and then we can actually take all of this code, put it in here, and then we can say down here, if there's still a winner, then return out the winner.
You gotta change the index stuff, right?
Yep, row index, col index.
Alright, you finish,
I think
you
that's
finish,
pretty
you
clear,
finish
though.
printing it up for us. Figure it out.
Yeah, I think the diagonal was like,
But a good one to think through, because that is a reasonable thing to say, like, hey, here's a multi-dimensional array, we got to check and validate the data. So now let's see, talk the talk, see if we can walk the walk.
no alert.
That was from,
Start at 0, 2, start the row at 0, then start the column at 2, col index greater than or equal to 0, col index minus minus. Board at 0, 2 is equal to the winner, which is X. Take the board row index, col index, and make that our winner. This is no longer true. So we go back up to the col index, we minus 1 from it.
Oh, but the row is still the same.
yeah,
So we actually need,
I got it with the while loop instead of a for loop.
oh,
I just set row index and column index and incremented one and decremented the other.
interesting. I think what we can do, let's try this. Let's try and break out of this loop. And I'm gonna have to come back to that one, I think. Hmm. Have to play with that one.
Is the if winner outside of the,
It is outside of both loops.
is it supposed to be?
Yes, because we've got to check all three. And once all three are checked, then it should work. What you can do that,
Yeah, what is that?
so you can use a label on a for loop. I had been writing JavaScript for a decade before I learned that this was valid syntax. But what break does is it assumes to break out of the nearest parent for loop. So because I broke here, it's going to break out of this for loop here. But if I wanted to be able to break out of a loop further up, I can do what is called a label and put a label on my for loop. And then when I use my break here, I tell it what label I would like it to stop or to break out of. And because I specified a label, it knows to break out of this outer for loop all the way up here, which would also break out of the inner for loop.
Wow.
But I do not know 0, 2. It's going to hit this. It has my X. Then it comes through and it sees that those are equal. So it breaks out of this for loop and goes out to this for loop. Now my row is 1. Oh, this is going to be really dirty. You guys aren't going to like this.
No. No way.
Oh, stop. Oh.
Okay, so what we did, God, I love programming sometimes. Start row index at 0. Start col index at 2 minus whatever row index is. So the first time this runs, row index is 0, col index is 2 minus 0, which is still 2. Check row index, which is 0, and col index, which is 2, against our winner. Winner we know starts at 0, 2. So our winner is fine to keep track of. Now we go on to the next time and we say, all right, row index is now 1. The first time we check col index, we now take 2 minus 1. 2 minus 1 is still greater than 0. So now check 1, 1.
I get it now, because every time we was doing it before, it was automatically setting the column index back to 2.
Yep.
So in essence, once it broke out, it didn't change.
Yep.
You doing good?
Now that you got that fancy 2 minus row index, can you get rid of the column loop altogether?
I think you can.
I'll call you at 7:20.
I was thinking that, but I was too afraid to
But
test it.
I'm gonna call you at 7:20 then.
No.
Oh,
No, we cannot.
I'm actually.
Oh, because I'm breaking out of the loop.
I'm actually currently getting that glitch where it's like anytime you click one of the top 3 boxes, it just declares you.
Okay. So I'm going to take this out. There is a thinker for you. Let's take our break now. And when we come back at 7:20, we'll work through anyone who doesn't have their tic-tac-toe working. And then we're gonna go into capstone after. Everyone take a break now and we'll come back to this. And then I will answer your question, Zach.
Sheesh. Okay.
I want to copy.
And I'll come to anyone who's remote and who is stuck as well. But important thing is read through the comments here, right? So I'm gonna over break, I'm gonna comment out the reverse diagonal as well.
We still get 3 points.
I said I would help you guys after break if you guys are stuck anywhere. Does anyone have questions on any of our solutions in the entire check game status refactored solution? So the last thing we should do, and believe it or not, we are actually done with tic-tac-toe, is we are going to come down to the bottom. We're going to switch our random turn back to our computer block or random turn, so that when we put this up on our portfolio, the computer is actually blocking us. So that's all the way down at 425. And then if you really wanted some extra bonus points, you would go back through and add a comment at the beginning of every function, right? So button clicked. What is button clicked? It's an event handler that runs whenever the person clicks on a button in the HTML, updates the board based off what button they clicked on, checks to see if they won, then makes the computer block or play a random space, then checks to see if the computer won. So you should go through and put a note like that in the beginning of every function, because that's breaking down your game. And you could even put a note up here like check game status refactored. That's the one that we're using. So you could come down to this check game status and say deprecated in favor of refactored version using loops. And then you should say why it was deprecated. So this function does not check diagonals where the refactored version does. And I'm not sharing my screen. Remote people, you asleep at the wheel?
Recording.
I am recording. That one I got. Thank you for checking though. Okay, so you're just going through and adding in these level of comments, so that when an employer comes to you in 6 months and says, hey, I saw this on your portfolio. This is a great project to make sure that you can explain the code that you wrote. Walk me through your code. Now you've got your comments to lean on and make sure you're understanding it all. So homework assignment, while it is not required, the only thing required to turn in is a functional version. You don't even have to turn in the loops version, right? So you can turn in the version with all the if statements, but I would highly encourage you to say, hey, we're at the end of a JavaScript week here, right? We've got 3 weeks of JavaScript. If there's something that I don't understand here, that's when I need to take a breather and follow up in office hours, or shoot Max a message, or schedule a one-on-one to make sure that we're understanding all of that. Okay, you still stuck, Zach?
Yeah.
Go ahead and share your screen.
Why are you doing that? Is there a way that, I don't know if we can do stuff on our own, but you said do the like the free code care project. I'll say if you can give us like a small assignment to kind of put the things we've been doing together
Hangman would be a good next one.
that we would try to do on our own.
Hangman is a good one.
Okay.
For
We'll try
Larry.
that.
Got nine
I don't
assignments
want
to do
to
right
be that
now.
dude, but I do want to be that dude because I'm like, I want to
I'm just messing.
see that I understand. You know?
Yep, nope. Hangman is a good one. And then check the free code camp projects. There are, I want to say like 9 or 10 of them in the JavaScript certification, and I like all of them. So, okay, X is 1. So let's go. Let's start at where our code starts, which is the button clicked. Button clicked is, at least in mine, it's all the way down at the bottom. Okay, and so you're calling check game status refactored in both of them, and then you've got the computer blocker random turn. I don't see anything wrong with any of that. So now let's go back to our check game status refactored. Before you do that, let me show you a pro tip. If you hold in command and click on check game status refactored on 425, it will jump you right up to that section of the code.
Oh, cool.
So it's like making your code a hyperlink essentially.
Hold down the command button and click it.
Oh, nice.
It just jumps to like the first.
It jumps to where it's defined.
Okay.
Winner equals no.
Okay, so you're looping through your board, and you assume the winner is in the first. Hold on. Okay, you assume the winner is in the first row. You then loop over your const col and you check to see if the column is the winner. If they are the winner, you set it. Otherwise, you set winner to null and you break out of both loops. Okay, so the problem isn't there. Let's go down to there. Let winner is 0 call index, while row index is that and that. Check board index, row index, set the winner. I don't know about you, but I don't want a winder.
Oh, did I do that again? Where is it?
232.
Not the first time I made that mistake. Cool. Thank you.
No problem.
So I don't know if this is necessarily like a glitch or not, but it's something I noticed last night. If I do this, it blocks it. But if I do this, I can like fake it out. Hold on.
I don't think we blocked on diagonals.
Well, mine, I set mine up to block diagonally, but I noticed that if it blocks it going this way.
So if it blocks it going that way, you are probably missing an and whatever thing you're checking is not equal to an O.
What's like, so if I do this, it blocks it.
Okay,
Program that in. But if I do this, it tries to block it this way, but then it doesn't try to block me this way. Is that?
That's probably going to be in your if statements, because I can't think of anything. I'm guessing what's actually happening is the block for the top right doesn't have a and is not equal to O. Right, because if you go to your block code, which also could be refactored for loops, but I get the vibe that everyone has had enough with for loops. If you go to your block code, because this is the code that's only checking for a winner, right? Our block code is still all the if statements.
Yeah.
So if you go down to the computer block word random turn. Okay, so top right, you say if 0, 0 and 0, 1, then it check 0, 2, and if it's not an O, that's where we're gonna go. So the problem isn't there, which is where I thought it would be. Go down to your diagonal. If 0, 0, 1, 1 and 2, 2. I don't know what's causing that. 1, 2, 2, 2, 0, 2, keep going up. 0, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0. I do not see the problem there. What you could do to dig in to figure it out is put a console log inside every if statement and see which one it's hitting. So like just go through and console log 1 and then go into the next if statement and do a console log 2. And if you make your way all the way through there, when you go and fake it out, you can see what if statement it's hitting or not hitting. And that may give you some context into why it's not working. Okay. Any other questions?
I've got a bug in mind.
Okay,
It
Good.
looks like if I don't win, then on the computer, on my last turn, the computer goes over one of my X's.
oh,
No, not,
it's a bug in.
I think I know what you're talking about. I think I had something like that might have happened on mine. I didn't realize what the bug was. So I'd have like 6 spots on the board filled, or maybe 7. No, yeah, maybe 7, and then it won't let me pick 8 or 9.
oh, for me, it would be like computer wins, and I'd look what the computer has, and I was like, that used to be an X down there.
Oh,
But it's hard to,
replicate.
yeah. Trying to figure out like what is the exact, when does it happen?
Any other
It
questions?
just happened again. It seems like it's always in the lower left square. I'll debug my own code, see what I can figure out.
There was a good chance that we missed something in the if statements. And that is, I know it sounds very tedious, but all of these if statements that we wrote here could be refactored using a similar loop structure to what we did up here to check to see if there's a winner. Right, because you basically want to write your loops to say, go through it and find anywhere where there are 2 X's in this row or 2 X's in this column or 2 X's in this diagonal. And if there are 2 in there, then that's the empty spot is where you want to block it.
The next one is, say you click on a space, empty space, and then the computer makes a move. You can just click on the O for the computer and change the X. Like, yeah.
So that should be an easy fix. What we can do is say, first we can share our screen. Because if it's not shared, not only do the remote people not get it, the recording doesn't either. Okay, so what we can do is when we do our button clicks, what we do is we say, if the button ID is 1, check to see if the board 0, 0 exists. And if it doesn't, then go ahead and set our value in. Otherwise, alert, you can't have this space. It's already taken, you little cheater. And then we are actually going to add a return here. And what that return is going to do is it's going to say, don't bother running any of the code down here, just stop. Stop this whole function and say you don't need to do anything else, stop. And then we would need to take this and copy it everywhere. And so now we go here, and I just did it on the first two. But if we click here again, it should say you can't have the space it's already taken, you little cheater.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you could do a to do in here and say add if statements to check if button is already taken. But hopefully you can read over that if and that makes sense.
Before the alert. I'm gonna put that in right now. Write that in.
It's a small thing. So when you're looking at someone's code, do you care if the comments start off with capital or lowercase? The grand scheme.
I do not.
Okay.
I care if variables start off with the capital, and I care if functions start off with the capital, but comments, I would probably prefer sentence case because, well, let me put it like this. If it is a sentence, I would prefer sentence case. If it's not a sentence, I would prefer it not to be in sentence case. The problem is oftentimes you'll start off a comment thinking that it's going to not be a sentence, and then you think of another sentence you want to write. And now because you're in programming brain, you've written everything in lowercase. So I tend to be bad and not write it in sentence case and then realize I need to explain the code further and then don't go back and refactor it. But that is totally personal preference. And I don't know that there's a strong push either way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So remember the infinite loop activity you put in?
Yep.
So that popped up before the computer even did the third turn. I was like, it could have been my turn. Like the team didn't choose to win.
Yep.
But they didn't. It was like 3 extra spots.
It may be an issue with your block if statements. Because I don't think I've ever had that happen. So I'm guessing that there is a problem in the computer block or random move function in this one here. So you'd want to check your zeros and your ones and make sure everything's lining up there.
I found the bug.
Okay.
I had board 2-0 where I should have had board 0-2.
I think,
Like when I'm on the right side and I do the bottom and the middle on the right, instead of going in the top right, the computer would go in the bottom left.
I'm pretty sure Zach actually found that bug last night and it was in my code. And I sneakily went back in last night and fixed that bug.
Oh, okay.
Oh, so that means we didn't.
I must have copied it over.
Also, there is supposed to be an X and O on the bottom. Okay.
Good job, Zach.
That's what I'm.
Thanks.
Could be.
That's definitely.
I seem to remember Zach being like, I can't get it. And then he like figured out the exact sequence. And then that's how we found it in the if statements.
How did you find it?
I was just like clicking random, well, not random buttons. I was going through and making sure that like it was blocking me for every direction I tried to do. And I noticed that it wasn't blocking me for like that specific.
Okay.
Yeah.
For me, I noticed, I think I was like, oh, it keeps showing up in the bottom left. I didn't see the pattern of when it was happening, but I noticed it kept putting it in the bottom left. So I just searched the code for 2-0. I figured that's where it's putting it, and that would show me give me an idea of where to find it.
All right, there's one other thing that I need to prep for you guys for Ryan coming in next week, and then we can switch over to, if anyone wants to do a capstone update with the class, you can. If not, I will hunt you down for one-on-one sometime next week. So we've been doing a lot of generating out our HTML, and our HTML is all a string, and then we use inner HTML here, right? And we take our HTML string, shove it into inner HTML, and that's when the document object model does all of the magic, takes the string and actually makes it HTML in the browser. Well, there are other ways of creating elements using JavaScript. So you don't have to follow along on this. This is just like an exposure thing, so you're familiar with it. I'm going to just create a new folder called DOM.
Sure.
And I'm going to create a new file called index.html. And I'm going to do my whole HTML. So there are other ways of, we've used document.getElement by ID a lot, and we've used document.innerHTML, but there are some other functions that are similar to that. So if I create my div ID in here, let's say a div class, or we'll keep it an ID, and say new elements go in here. In the body, in my script tag, I don't have to use a source tag, right? I can go right in here and I can write some JavaScript in. And when I pop this open in the browser and look in my inspect, I can go into my console and see a test. Well, in our console, we've been doing document.getElement by ID a lot and getting out our new elements go in here. But, and if I save and refresh, now I got my div in here, right? But what does get element by ID remind you of? What have we kind of done to target elements before?
Target.
Nope, not in JavaScript itself. What other thing have we done to target certain elements? CSS. So wouldn't it be cool if we could say get elements by get, is it query selector? What if we could use a query selector instead and then say, hey, get it by that ID. So if we save that and come back over here, we get our new elements going here, but now we've got some flexibility because we could also put a div in here with a class of my class and an ID of 1. And then we could also come in here, keep it my class and say a div ID of 2. And so when we're in here, we can use our query selector. And then now instead of using our ID, we could actually say my class. And when we look in our code, we get our class coming out using the query selector. Now we only get the first one that it finds there, but lots of different ways of using query selector, even though it's doing the exact same thing. It's returning the same object. There are just different ways of using our JavaScript methods to get access to it. The other thing we could do is we could say, hey, let's go back to our new elements going here. And we're going to take that whole thing and we're going to call it const parent container. And instead of creating our HTML string and using inner HTML and getting it in there, we can actually say const new div equals document dot create element. And create element needs to know what kind of element, what kind of tag we want to create. So let's create a p tag. And that p tag, I called it new div, I should call it new p, new paragraph. That new paragraph, we can add some inner text to that or inner HTML that says my text goes here.
What's the difference between the inner text and inner HTML?
Inner text isn't going to render out your HTML. Inner HTML will. And inner HTML is the preferred one to use because it's more powerful. Inner text may actually be deprecated, I'm not sure. But the general thinking there is that inner HTML is going to have HTML tags in it and it will render those out for you. Well, our new paragraph isn't going to show up here until we take our parent container, and we could set inner HTML and add it in there, or we could append a child in taking our new paragraph and adding it into the parent container. So if we save that and come over here and refresh, my text goes here. And if we inspect and take a look, here's my new elements go here, and here's my P tag that got created.
So with the inner HTML, it would have just showed up, you would have to append the child.
Nope, you still have to do that because we're targeting the inner HTML of the new paragraph. That new paragraph is just a new element called a P tag.
Okay.
But that P tag hasn't actually been added into the parent container until we append the child.
Okay.
So I'm showing you this only because the way Ryan normally teaches next week with the New York Times is he prefers this syntax. And there's something to be said about it because you're using that object model a little bit more, right? You're modeling it after the JavaScript and saying all in JavaScript. The way I do it is a little bit hackier because you're saying, yeah, it's all a string, right? I happen to be using P tags and all of that stuff. And once we set it in using the inner HTML, that's when it takes it from the string and converts it into actual elements that are used in the browser. So the way of doing it this way is that you're storing all of those DOM objects in a variable in JavaScript, and then you're using the DOM to append those variables essentially into that HTML. So I just wanted to expose you to this. I was talking to Ryan today and making sure that we were coordinated on all of that. And this is one of those things where it's like it's personal preference. And there are some developers who would do it my way. There are other developers that do it this way. And so I just wanted to expose you to it. It is a very opinionated thing. Some developers think this is better. Some developers think the other way is better. I see merits to both of them. So just want to give you some idea that there are multiple ways of writing the same code. Okay, now I am done with new content. I have nothing new to teach you for the next 35 minutes, but I do probably have some valuable insights on your capstones. So does anyone want to give an update with where they are at on their capstone, either share any progress on it, talk about what you've worked on, talk about where you're stuck, just give basically a stand up for your capstone.
I'll set it off. So
I'll go after.
I have not gotten that far. On my whiteboard in my room, I wrote down a couple of ideas for functionality. So some of the things that I wanted to be able to do. I actually did get the data though that I need, and I put that in a Google Sheet.
Okay.
But as far as wireframing, getting, thinking of all the pages I need, I haven't done that yet.
Okay.
That's it.
So for me, I ended up finding my name, getting a subdomain. So my name is called Therapeutic Impact. So now I have it on GitHub. I can share my screen.
Yeah, go for it.
I didn't really get far either. I'm gonna try it on. I think it's saved already.
Did you say you wanted to just see like a Trello breakdown or something?
Oh, so yeah, let me just go it off word of mouth thing. So I was able to make my subdomain on Namecheap from so basically it's therapeuticsimpact.NicoleBroadneck.com. So it will be a page synced up to my portfolio page. And then I didn't make any pages on that yet, but I was able to push it up to its live. So if you type in Syracuse you type in that domain Syracuse Impact, you'll see just the word Syracuse Impact. And then I ended up calling around to different organizations to gather data, and they ended up finding a youth advisory board that they gave me, and I have like almost all of the stuff that they have here in Syracuse that I'm gonna put on my page. And then also I went over what I needed for the capstone, and I put it into a separate Trello board. So for each week, something that we have, like for like each wireframe, I put what I wanted my website to look like. So I went off a different one off of Google, and I seen that it had a nav bar, and I seen that it had all these different types of things. So then I put a checklist in for each week of what was required of the capstone, because that's how I have to remember how to do things, and that's as far as I got with my capstone.
Awesome. Who else wants to go?
I can go next.
Sure, go for it.
I'll share my screen. This is, can you guys see this?
Yep, you're good.
So I made a race. I was playing around with an image grid, and this is a code that I got some index.html in here. And so the other day when we were doing the tic tac toe, I need to change these to either, I think, buttons, or I'm not sure. So I was trying to play around with it to see if I could get the button to turn these into buttons. Like I want the images to be buttons, so I'm still working on that. And I styled it, and then I found in CSS the so let me see. I was trying to, so I can do this. So it goes like this. And if I do that, it'll only be 2 in a row. So on a cell phone, you would only be able to see 2 as opposed to this. So that's I was trying to see if what I was thinking, if I could make it into a reality. So what my goal is to be able, it won't be me. It'll be something, it'll be a picture of something. And I haven't decided what that's going to be, but then when you click on the picture, it'll take you to, and I don't think it'll be as many, but when you click on the picture, it'll take you to another page. And then that page will have information behind the picture. So
nice.
that's what okay.
Good work. Anyone else want to go?
I'll share mine.
Sure, go for it.
On our way back to Zoom.
Sure.
So I had done a bunch of bullet points on like requirements list, and thought I was ready to start wireframing it, and I made this and quickly realized I was like, oh, if I click this, something else is going to happen, and so I went to pencil and paper. I don't have a copy of that, but I did a bunch of versions with that, and I wound up with this. So mine is just more of the layout design of the app and how it's going to work, like how, in the list view, if you click an item, you have options to check it off the list, remove it from the list, or deactivate it. Down here is just to add new items. Items that you've already found will be crossed out. And the main view is a store map with little icons for the items you've already got, the one you're currently looking for. And these are the ones you've already found, 5 and 7 to go.
Nice.
Zoom in, zoom out, go to the list. So I mean, really, I've just been making pictures, but
Now on to the next important step of diving into your HTML and getting it laid out.
yeah.
Awesome work. Who wants to go next? If you don't, it's no big deal. Just know that I will be reaching out to you probably on Monday to schedule a one-on-one. And you're welcome to proactively reach out to me as well and schedule one. The goal here is that the capstone is not like this, you know, overarching lingering thing, because we don't want you to get to the 2/3 mark of the program and realize, oh, I've got this whole capstone I need to get done, right? So if you go back and you look at it at this point in your skills, you've got everything to create HTML pages. You've got everything to wireframe out to plan those HTML pages. And you can even start using your JavaScript to make that HTML interactive. So next week, you're going to start seeing how to pull APIs in, other third-party data into your own JavaScript, and then making that show up. So hopefully you are taking the lessons from here, using it as inspiration and getting it going in your capstone. But even if you're like completely lost on your capstone and you don't know where to start, still schedule a one-on-one with me. And if you don't by Monday, I'll reach out to you and we'll figure out a time to get it done. But the goal here is that, you know, you've got enough skills, whether you think you do or not, to actually start working on your capstone. So just trying to get some progress done in there and get even a general wireframe coded out and in your HTML is the point that you should really be at this point in the program. Anyone else want to go now with the rest of the class? Anyone want me to shut up and end class 27 minutes early?
I need a- if you do class, I still want to.
Okay, that's fine. Chris, do you have a comment?
So for my tic-tac-toe, it keeps saying that my something is not responsive. So my page is not like maybe my internet, I don't know. So it's not.
Nope. Page is not responsive is your while loop is infinitely running, and because of that, Chrome doesn't know how to make your tic-tac-toe work. So
What did I was like, what did I do to make that happen?
So first thing I would check is we added in this let num loop runs equal 0. And then in our while loop, we checked to make sure that that was still under 1,000. Then we incremented it every time. And then we said, if the num loop runs is over 999, alert that there's been an infinite loop detected. So that was one thing that we did to put in to say like, hey, if we get stuck in an infinite loop for whatever reason, you know, we can check it. The other thing to check here is making sure our if statement is correct in here, and that we've got empty row index equals random call and empty call index equals random call. And we don't have one of these saying row when the other one is call.
Are you on like 41, 42, 36?
Yep,
Okay,
right in
yeah,
there.
all of that stuff, I have all that. And then for 48, I have if num loop runs greater than 99.
All right, go ahead and share your screen. Let's take a look.
Okay, let me see.
I'm looking at it right here.
So,
Yeah, shift
right
five,
here.
command shift
Yep.
4,
Well, I'm trying, the last time I played it, I was just clicking around. And so I haven't, when I went back in,
I don't see a problem with any of that code.
so see when it's here, and then see how it says you can wait for it to come.
So go ahead and exit the page.
Mhm.
and then reload it, and then see if you can get it to freeze again. It's not doing anything.
Well, and then even when I try to do inspect and go to the console to see if there was something wrong.
Okay, let's go to your button clicked, because that's where it all starts, right? That's where. So your button clicked is all the way at the bottom. Okay, so we do all of the work to let the player put the X in, and then go down a little bit more. Then we check the game status refactored, and if there is a winner, clear the board. If there is not, then computer blocked random turn. But I don't like that there is that little underline under that.
Right there,
Yep.
it says quick fix. Could not find computer blocked random turn. Did you mean computer block or random turn?
Did you?
I probably did.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so the or. Just the or?
Computer block or random turn.
Oh my God.
You need to take out the ED in blocked.
Computer, wait. Computer blocked.
Computer block.
Just block.
Block, yes. We're telling the computer, hey, you should block or make a random turn.
Oh my goodness. Okay, let me see. Reload.
Okay, so we still have a problem. Go back to your code.
Oh,
Computer block or random turn, then check to see if there's a game winner, and if there's not a game winner. Okay, so here, I'm gonna take remote control.
okay.
So oftentimes what we want to do is we want to comment out our code until it's not a problem, and then comment it back in to see where it's getting hung up. So I'm going to refresh this. I'm going to click somewhere, and our X doesn't even show up. So there must be, well, hold on.
Maybe you're still loading.
Okay, our X works, and we can place another X, and that's not the problem. So now we go line by line, and we figure out what's holding it up. So we save that in there, we come back here, we refresh, and we click somewhere, and now all of a sudden our X is broke. So that means we know our problem has to be in here, because if it were anywhere else, right, commenting that out means all of a sudden it starts working again. So our problem must be in our check game status refactor. So let's go up there, and we say, go through the board, go through the column of the row, and if there's a winner, set winner. Otherwise, set winner and break, and if there's a winner, return the winner. Okay, so no problems there. Now we do our call index while it's less than 3, row index. And what do we do with row index? We don't do anything with row index. We don't even add one to row index. So every time this loop runs, do nothing with row index.
So for this last one,
So compare this one to line 217 and see what the difference is.
oh, the plus.
Yep. Because that section of the code is telling it how much do we want to increment the row index by. So save and see if that, oh, and then go back down to the bottom and comment the rest of it back in.
Okay.
And now if we refresh and play, you're good to go.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you want to share your screen or you want me to come over?
Yeah, I'll just do it.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone else? Because we can probably end class unless anyone has a question. All right. Reminder to everyone, we are off on Monday. There is no class whatsoever. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and the following Monday are all fully remote. There will be a poll on Monday to see if you guys want to come back in person or if you want to stay fully remote. But Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and the following Monday are fully remote. You are off the next Monday for Memorial Day, this upcoming Monday. Ryan will be your teacher. Weather app forecast and Tic Tac Toe are your two major homework assignments. And bonus points if you style your Tic Tac Toe and get it up on your portfolio page and push it to GitHub so other people can see it on your website. Oh, last homework assignment I have not posted yet, 30-second feedback form. That makes my life so much easier because Jesse and everyone else in the program can see feedback on how this week went overall. And I can make sure to improve this week and also improve future weeks. So please fill out the 30-second feedback form. I will create that as a homework assignment, but you can be proactive and beat me to it and fill that out. The link is in Canvas, and I'm going to drop the link in the Zoom chat as well, so we all have it.
So Max, on my one-on-one that I'm gonna schedule with you, I need some help with my capstone. I have an idea, but I need you to help me put it together.
Perfect. I am your man for that job.
I could give you a concept. It's not a dating site or a app. It's more like I do art. I like art. So I'm like, wouldn't there be a nice place if everybody could just upload their stuff and communicate and just, you know?
Yep.
So something pertaining to that.
Sure. Yeah, we can definitely think through all of those requirements and get you to a good starting point.
All right. Cool.
All right. Anyone else have comments before I end the class? Okie doke. Have fun with Ryan next week, and I will see you not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after that.
Enjoy your holiday weekend.
Yep, same to all of you.
See you
Yeah.
guys.
Take care, everybody.